You know, what I find strange about communication at a distance is the matter of a monologue where there is no response from the recipient, because the comments below really are not a response. They're a different dialogue. But in communicating with people at a distance, where responses cannot be immediate and in kind, there is an artificiality which is built in to that process. So, unless something is truly worth relating at length, I don't know, like a lecture about something, it's really sort of an exhortation to the others, either for or against something. It's one of the two. It's either rhetorical persuasion, couched in whatever terms, or it's reasoned exposition, or some demonstration of some talent or whatever. Basically, the matter is that this is not a truly interactive modality in the way that even a telephone call or even writing letters would be, in a way, except with writing a letter, there's a standard protocol for exposition. With a lecture there is too, with a speech or whatever there is also, but in this case there is not, because there are too many profane ears out there, and I don't wish to speak directly to such people. Too many profane eyes. I don't wish to write words directly to such people. Things cannot go much deeper than the most superficial examination of the world's phenomena, and my terse and perhaps growingly blunt sort of assessments and pronouncements of judgment about them. So that's not really where I would want to be, but I'm not in a utopia. I'm not in a realm which is filled with people with whom I can co-create a world. I'm in a prison filled mostly with troglodytes who live here and obey some trolls who are their masters. And I'm neither of those types of beings, but I'm yet here. And it's quite clear that both of those kinds, however they may relate to each other, as commanders and obeyers, as masters and slaves, both treat us spiritually, beings of truth and justice. They treat us as a slave class, and these bodies are conditioned by all manner of subtle energy, no doubt, but especially also technological augmentations in our recent times, which are not evidence of human progress at all if you look at what they're used for, but by the same token, not miracles either, because they're developments which can easily be conceived by controlling minds. You could just as well keep us like peasants. Look how we treat animals in zoos. Do you see us evolving them? No. Do you see us adding technology which makes their lives more in one way or another to lead to certain outcomes of behavior? Yeah, sure, we put things in their cages that entice them to behave in certain ways, toys, problems if they're more advanced like apes, puzzles, reward punishment setups, and we condition them. Just being in the cage is a condition. So in a world where all the conditioning that takes place is structured against the grain of a being's true nature, that being cannot thrive there. He would have to, that nature would have to be muted in him, or perhaps transmuted, or just destroyed and rotted out of him. Or that vessel would be only saddled with a weight which would interfere with its activity in the world. On the other hand, if it actualizes, the world immediately pounces on it and hates it, or tries to wash it over with their reactions. They've got to control it, you see. Their reactions coming out. Oh, let's adore it, let's cherish it, let's rub shoulders with it, or oh my God, let's try to mock it, or shame it, or embarrass it, or let's attack it, let's try to dominate it, let's try to devour it. It's always a relationship of objectification of the spiritual other that shows evil to be what it is. It can't just have a neutral or non-interactive relationship. It can't do that. There's no room for that. It's got to get something. Give something, even if, it takes your diamonds and gives you some tin. That's the way the world operates energetically with real beings. Just like a bunch of beggars, just like a bunch of bums. Now, some of them accumulate more of what they steal than others and systematize the maintenance and perpetuation of their wealth over the rest of the bums, but they're all bums. My rubbing shoulders, more or less, with both types here in LA for the last 1 year and 4 months have convinced me of nothing if not that. Exceptions only prove the rule. If you're an exception and the shoe fits, wear it. Accept yourself from this judgment. Otherwise, it comes in all sizes, apparently. Whether you be the most pathetic wretch or the most regal, commanding, arrogant, royal bastard. Whatever you may be on that continuum, because it is a continuum, you're all some kind of bum. First-rate, classy bum. Some kind of middle class, ne'er-do-well, good old boy, / upward mobility challenged, blue-collar, low-level, white-collar bum, or some other type of bum, digging out of trash cans. Or you're really ascetic bum. I doubt these guys' sincerity, because who would want to live like that? Who? I don't see what they're accomplishing. I think they're just, I don't know. I just wish they wouldn't put it in my face. I'd like to get down the sidewalk. Same with people with their articles of evidence for their betterness. Ooh, I have things. Ooh, look, so either way, whether it's, look, I'm more ascetic than you. Look, I have more stuff than you. You're all bums. You're spiritually bums. There's nothing you can do to change it. There's no substance you can take into you. There's no thing you can express out of you which will make that go away. And which is why you can't leave the righteous alone in today they're very minor numbers. You won't even let them have, even those who may or may not be righteous per se, but who are in favor of righteous initiatives, such as, in some ways, for example, Donald Trump. I mean, he just blatantly started off talking about illegal immigration in a logical way that everybody else was just being too cowardly or too naive to face. It's just common sense, and nothing in what he says is striking new ground. This is ancient wisdom. You must have borders to have a nation. This is not radical. What's radical is how naive and avoidant and cowardly so many in different proportions have been in coming to terms with this. And the national debt and all sorts of other aspects of human society and its blatant evil, which most people gladly ignore, in their various degrees of bumhood. They're negligent beings. A bum is a negligent being. They're loitering in existence. naturally you can't express the truth to them. It's just something for them to mock. They're either one of these lower level control freak bums, or they're one of these lower level or upper level, fools, obedient slaves. And they're playing all these dramas out with each other. They're on these low frequency, so to speak, karmic textures of consciousness. This quid pro quo of all these gestures and animalistic rites of scratching each other's backs and sniffing each other's behinds and whatever other kind of thing that's the human equivalent of what lower animals do that has nothing to do with principle, right? It's just disgusting. It's odious. And they're completely against facing fundamental realities like that. So when someone like Donald Trump comes out and says something like that, I just don't know what to think about it. I know that it's perfect evidence of what I've been talking about all along, that people are avoidant of reality, and that apparently, he could be in on it and just, okay, let's pick the one thing that we can admit about truthfully and act on, so that the people will think there's been a radical revolution in the way things are. So they're playing the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic again. But the Hegelian dialectic here can only fool people who don't see the larger scale dialectic of ultimate truth versus ultimate falsehood, ultimate good versus ultimate evil, which defines the boundaries of our lengths of distance and durations of time from the point of origin of this entire universe, which defines the sum of the evil mind and its project and the fates of all beings that emanate in here at all. And that basically a virtuous being is to fulfill its nature here by choosing the best possible way to demand justice inside this unjust system, which could mean just it could be something as pointed as there's so many ways to express yourself. You just do what comes natural to you. In my case, I like to just reflect on, and in any way I can reveal the absurdity whenever it's going on in front of me, or at least not allow it to impinge itself on me. If I think there's something better for me to do, I'll tolerate it being wherever it is, as long as it doesn't fling itself into my domain and ruin what I'm doing or trying to get to doing. Because what I would prefer to do with my time is, on a larger scale, reveal as much as I can about these absurdities, so that people have in some tangible form working evidence that dispels the illusions of the lies of this world. That's what I've developed within myself as a natural defense mechanism against it. That's what I have proceeded to make an art form and a science for myself. Why wouldn't I want to benefit others who could make use of that sort of technology? But it's just sort of a swan song before leaving this universe. This universe is no place to be for a righteous being. It's vacuous. It has to be radically transmuted. It has to be completely immobilized and reduced, so that a pure refinement and separation of the good from the evil can be completed, so that time for this being can completely and finally end in its connection with any being who cares to witness such a thing, because we wouldn't care to. Our time begins then. In our utopic world, our city of God. Nothing that Augustine could have understood. But in that domain, this will be a flash of nothingness. Time begins then. Right now, for us, time does not begin. We're in a state of immobility in our essence because of the world's opposition to truth. It's just look at it. The evidence has been spelled out already. If you know me, if you've gotten to me, if you've endured anything I've ever had to say, you know what the evidence is for why the world is absurd as a soil in which righteousness and truth grows. So basically, fundamentally, it has to be completely ended. And when that happens, time ends for them. Their existence won't end, but their freedom to act in ways that they prefer will, because their imprisonment begins in a realm we call hell, which is foreign to us, but it's their natural state. They will be forced to be among their own kind, and this will lead to whatever results it leads to. We don't have to care. They're hermetically sealed. And that will be just crunched down until nothing's left but what squeezes out of the sheath that forms its outer parameters, which when reduced to its inmost point are reduced to, the content is reduced to the form, and vice versa, and then there'll be nothing left but basic pleroma energy. Transmutation complete. This is the only way to deal with them. There's no parlay with them. This is not a parlay. They can parlay with each other if they wanted that. But before that can truly begin, there has to be a complete separation of good from evil. It's absolutely necessary. So anyone who speaks of conflict in this world is indicative of anything that matters to a spiritual person, but keeps talking about wars, and keeps talking about disasters, and keeps talking about what might happen if your food runs out, and that's all they got. They talk about these things, and then maybe they insert a little bit, get right with God, and then it's all about all this. They're not on the right track. Where are they trying to lead you? Into gross physicalism? That's, no matter even if you survive all this, you still have the fate of the body. Do you really trust someone that can extend its life indefinitely just because they can do that? We've extended it much longer than it used to be in olden times. That doesn't vouch for the moral beneficence of those who extend these improvements in our longevity. So even immortality wouldn't be proof of something like that. Even if the body's lifespan could be extended indefinitely, it would prove that we're in a hospitable realm for our moral natures with that. What would prove that would be something we would appreciate as a non-commanding, non-obeying, non-master-slave relations of consciousness in a society where the commonality of virtue is sufficient to secure agreements about what to do in common, and then after that, everyone is left to their own sovereign liberty as what to do as individuals, whether in public or in private. And those agreements can be easily secured and rationally so, without resorting to illogic or coercion or bribery of any kind. There's no need to artificially induce the state for beings who are naturally so disposed. That's not the world we're living in right now, as you can plainly see. So those who speak about Putin as the great opposer of the one world order, and they keep focusing on what's the new world order, the one world order, and then what are these underlying geopolitics and these crypto-political moves and who's who, and that you get them from all quarters. Many of whom I respect in their efforts and their work and their intention. Alex Jones, James Preston James, Jeff Renz, so many others, and to different degrees and along different bandwidths and wavelengths. But bottom line is, if you don't have it right in your relation between what is truly right and what is truly in opposition to that, you're not firmly in one of those two camps. You're not in the camp of right. And while it's bad to be in the evil camp, it's worse to be in the middle. because those in the middle get devoured by the evil camp before it devours itself. Those in the righteous camp, they're completely free from that relationship when separated from it ontologically, because they're not the same in substance. If you're not in the right camp there, you're ruined. Further, it's better to be in this camp that is imprisoned in this realm, though this realm presents itself as a false state of reality, even to appear very, very horrifically as the reverse of what it is, so that the low are allowed into the high positions, and the truly great and good and noble are somehow always ground down into some shadow of their real natures and their real expressions in the world. So it's a very contrived laundering system of virtue and honor. The ons honorum of the world's royal authorities is completely bankrupt, and always has been. Kings don't take authority by lineage, so that's not how it works. They're elected. Real kings are elected, just like popes. You don't, anyway. People, real popes, real holy men, right? Witch doctors for the whole country, big witch doctors. If you want to think about it as non-hierophantic, they're just respected elders, really. That's all they are. They don't have authority beyond that in either case. In either case. Just like you would go to your senior and trusted and loved friend for advice, they're no different in essence. If it's asserted they're different in essence, that's a heresy against the truth. Same with those who can adjudicate matters that have to do with the multitude of affairs that have to do with the body and its possessions. In either case, real authority has become defunct in the world in terms of that, and it is that authority which pretended and has historically pretended to grant title to someone to be called virtuous in some area, to be called honorable, etc. They are the presumed ons honorum. And the ons honorum, or the fountain of honor, is defunct in this world. You know, the fleur de lis, the fleur de lis, which is about the promotion of virtue through time by some alchemical process involving apparent opposites. So it can symbolize many things, but it's asserted to refer to lineage and physical descent from royalty before. That's absurd. It means being victorious in the conflict of good and evil. It means being that one remaining being when the duality is resolved. And that honor belongs in the end always to the righteous, to the good, to the real. So that authority is vested in beings already, but it's extorted out into the artificial strata of worldly appearances, and then imposed back on people as a commodity of their obedience. You must transact willful action through these channels, which are regulated by these figures. And you buy into that. So, you buy into that to any degree, and to that degree you're trapped between those imprisoned here who don't buy into any of it, and the realm beyond it, which they know is the true utopia, metaphysical utopia, where truly righteous beings reside, where that's the true fons honorum. And that fons honorum, I said fons honorum, that fons honorum already wells up within them, and that gives them their lineage to divine essence, which is what royalty is supposed to be about. The divine essence rules reality. It is the ruling class, the royal class, and that comes through in the virtue that is within a being that wells up from within them. It is not granted by some other person in the same dimension in a hierarchical fashion. That's absurd. And besides the evidence that reveals those to be corrupt institutions, at least certainly by the time that it became a matter of inheritance. So in all extensions of inherited value and virtue and tradition, basically all human tradition has amalgamated into a great big travesty of virtue's ability to manifest itself and denominate itself in any form in this world. So the virtuous must truly be imprisoned here, and therefore those are cursed who are in the middle, who are between the prisoners and those who will rescue them and free them. So it's bad to be in the middle, both in the macrocosmic and in the microcosmic realm. And it's not as good to be in the middle of virtue. If you're in virtue and you're at the outer limits, hey, you made it, but it's better to always strive toward being the greatest exemplification of virtue that you can be. And if that happens to put you at the top of the glorious throng of the righteous, then that's just how fate had it. But the important thing was that you were striving to be at the top of your potential. If anyone fell short of their potential, and for that reason fell into the middle of this group, they just denied themselves a much greater glory. And they put the entirety of everyone's salvation at risk with whom their fates were intertwined. It's unethical. That must be striven against. I don't know what the lower bound of that is, but it ends in becoming one of the ignavi. It's not a continuum, but there's a point of no return. So I would strive always to avoid that as intensely as possible, no matter what the outcome of these geopolitical events, no matter what they mean. That's a pragmatic approach to looking at these phenomena that you're seeing in the news, especially on the internet and alternative media every day, which seem to always be galvanizing and regurgitating and recapitulating dimensions of oppression and torturous deformation of life as you know it. Because all that's going to end. It has this fantasy, it can go on forever. Oh, no, it can't. All that's going to end. So preparing yourselves for that end, whoever you are, is your sacred duty to your own soul. And it always is. No matter when your life happens, no matter what's happening, no matter how it ends, it's always your sacred duty to propel yourself to face your origin and return to it, to recognize it. You must recognize it in yourself.